everyone. Thanks for joining us here at Book Blather. If you're new here, I'm Dave. This is Olive, and we mostly talk about books. It's a little late, so we're going to have to keep Olive awake tonight with some pick-me-ups here. So we're into horror mayhem, reading horror, but today we want to tell you about a couple things that we read right before the start of May, before we started getting into our horror. And that is a couple of recent Adrian Tchaikovsky books. So if you've been around a while, you know that we love Adrian Tchaikovsky. We have read a bunch of his stuff. But Tchaikovsky's stuff tends to be big. It tends to be very good, but it tends to be big. This is one of his probably his most famous, Children of Time. And a lot of the books look like this. This is the latest one in that series. Look at this. This is massive chunker, which we are working through. But a little lesser known is that Adrian Tchaikovsky has written a number of novellas, and most of these don't really get a whole lot of buzz. So we just read a couple of those shorter works, and that's what we want to tell you about today, because if you've heard of Adrian Tchaikovsky, you have probably not heard of these. Maybe you have, but we'll tell you about them anyway. So the first one is Made Things. So this was published in 2019. And this was such a unique story. So this story follows our main character, Coppelia, and she lives in a city that is really kind of has a lot of magic in it. And so obviously this is a fantasy story, but it's a very original kind of fantasy story, because Coppelia is a thief, and she is kind of like half magician, basically. And she has a partnership with these two characters here. This is I think this one was Tef, and this one was Ark. And these are what they're called homunculi, right? And they're basically like little puppets. And they are made out of different things. Tef here, as you can say, is a wooden puppet. And Ark he's made out of metal. And so in this world, these homunculi, they're basically miniature sentient creatures, people, right? And they can be made out of different things. They can be made out of wood, metal, paper, fabric, wax, right? So there's all these different kinds, and they originated in this magical place in another city called the Tower, where there was a very powerful magician that was able to create them and give them the sort of magical spark to make them come to life and get sentience. And so they have spread out, and they, sort of created these little colonies. And so these two characters who are like the most adventurous, bravest, and they're not the leader, but they have a little pack, right? I forget, there was like 6 of them or something. And so their little group, it has a leader. These two are not them, but these two, of course, are the strongest characters of them, and they have partnered up with Coppelia, right, our human character, and they kind of go with her, and they help her, basically in her thieving. Coppelia kind of puts on these like shows, like magic shows, but then, these guys go around and they pickpocket and stuff while she's doing a show and distracting them. So she's always getting in trouble with the law, who's very abusive, but these are her partners, and they each have different, right? They each have different. So they live like, I forget. I think it was like on a shelf or a plate or something in her place, and she's trying to make a living, and these guys are trying to serve really their purpose, which is trying to like sort of build their colony and like build. They're always trying to build like new homunculi for their group, but it takes resources, and it takes magic. And so they're together, and I can't give, obviously it's a short book, so I can't give away too much of the story, but Coppelia has an aunt. It's not really an aunt, but it's an older woman that looks out for her, and she brings Copelia along on this adventure, basically this sort of thieving adventure with a number of other human characters, or I shouldn't say that, number of other characters, and they go and things go wrong, and they make a very big discovery that impacts everybody, and it's very totally changes the ball game about who has power around these places, and so and it tests the friendship between Copelia and these other these homunculi, and so it was a good story. I really enjoyed this. It was, as you can tell, it was so original. This is not your typical fantasy, right? It was very, very original, very whimsical, and it had, for a short novella, obviously it wasn't a super long, complex plot, but it had what you needed. It had found family and this adventure. You got the big battle and the everything, and it was and that little mystery, and it was really good. It was a really, really unique, fantastic, whimsical adventure story, and so it was really good. We definitely recommend this. So this, as we probably mentioned, is published in 2019. There is also a prequel story that is much shorter. It's basically a short story called Precious Little Things. And this, my understanding is that this was actually originally published first as a chapbook in 2017. It was like a chapbook that was given out at a British Novacon, maybe, but it was a British sci-fi convention, and so it was given out to attendees there. And so that was a limited special release. And then later in 2019, when this book came out, it had a wider digital release. So it was published at Tor.com, like as a Tor.com original, where you can go and read it at Tor.com, which is now has been rebranded as reactormag.com. So I will put a link down below, assuming I remember, to where you can go read that for free at Reactor. We bought that. You could also get it as a Kindle, as an ebook, for $1.99, which is what we did, because that's what Olive and I usually like to. When these stuff are available both ways, we're able to buy it. So some people have to buy it in order to support this stuff. Same as like when we read. Do I have them here? Yeah, like Clark's World magazine. They're great, right? You can read these for free, these science fiction stories at Clark's World online, but you can also buy the magazine, right? And some people have to do that in order for them to be able to support their progress. So anyway, so we bought the Kindle book for $1.99, but you can read it free there. And there is a version of this which we did not know about when we bought this. There is a version that you can get that includes the short story, Precious Little Things. So we will leave a link to the Blackwell's site where you can order that. Blackwell's is great. This is a relatively new discovery of ours that we learned from MJ over at Reading This Life, where you can get UK books. We sometimes like to get UK stuff because UK, even if it's available here, sometimes stuff's not available here or not available here yet in the US, or even if it is, it's a much nicer edition. Like the covers are they always take these nice UK covers and they crap them up for the US. I don't know why they do that. And then sometimes retitle it. So anyway, Blackwell's is great because Blackwell's, it's you can just order it online, just like with Amazon, but you can get the UK stuff and they ship to the US and it's free shipping. So it's great. It's great. I can't believe I didn't know about it for a long time. So I will leave the link to that in case you want to get the version that also includes the story Precious Little Things. So Precious Little Things, prequel, originally published first before this. However, I did not know that when I first read this book. And I would actually... So Precious Little Things, also very much worth reading. I actually like Precious Little Things even a little bit better than this book. And Precious Little Things is a prequel, and it covers an earlier. It starts with like one of a wooden homunculi. He's getting old and he wants his own child, so he creates a child, but he needs to go to the powers that be and get some gold to little gold inlays and to spark her to life. And so and they do. They're impressed with him, so the powers that be give him that. And so he creates his daughter Liet, who ends up being the main character. Of course, she is even though she's not of the upper caste, and but she's ambitious and capable and strong-willed, and so she's the star of the story. And it tells the story of back in the day in the tower, which is where they all came from. They originally lived in this tower with this very powerful magician that created them all different levels of the tower, tons of them, before they eventually start to spread out into the world to create these colonies. But they used to all just be isolated in this tower, and this is that story, their origins over there. So, and it's short, but it was really good. I really liked it. I liked it a little better. And I'm glad that I actually read this first. I would recommend reading it in the order that we did. Read this novella first, and then read that prequel, because it's kind of nice to read this story and then to get the story that delves further into their background and and more about their story, and just a little bit more about these homunculi. So that's just in our opinion, that's the way we would do it. And then lastly, we read Elder Race. So this was published in 2021. And this is sort of like, this was also very good. And this one I think is a little more well known. You may have heard of this one. And this one is also, short, another novella. And this one is a mash. It's like a sci-fi fantasy mashup. I mean, it's mostly sci-fi, but it's it's both. We're on this world where it follows our main two characters, Liness, and she is part of this. It's basically like a Middle Ages fantasy culture, where they use swords. And she is the fourth daughter of the queen of this kingdom, I guess, or whatever you would call it. And so she and our other main character is Near, who lives in this mysterious tower. And so Liness, who's the fourth daughter, right? She's always, she's not favored. She gets in trouble when she was very young. One time she ran to try to go to the tower, and she was brought back home and got in a lot of trouble, and they don't give her any, all her sisters, the other daughters all did what they're supposed to do and got lots of responsibility and everything, and she didn't. But then there is this word of this demon that's spreading throughout the lands, right? Through all these other towns on the edge and everything. And this demon that's wreaking havoc. And so she decides on her own, without permission, that she is going to make a journey to the tower. And you can see there what the tower looks like. She's going to go to the tower to ask for help from the wizard Near, who of course is not actually a wizard, right? And Near has been there for a very long time and had made a pact with it was Linessa's maybe great grandmother or something, that many years ago had come to seek his help. And so now Liness is all these many years later doing the same thing. And so Near is a little more, his background is a little more of a realistic sort of science fiction based background, right? So she goes to enlist his help, and then the adventure goes from there. And I don't want to say too much more because of it, but then there's some, a little bit of scary stuff happening. So a little bit, you may even call add a little bit of a horror in there too, actually, because it's this genre mashup, and especially kind of later on when you get to the, see what happens. So I don't want to say anymore. I don't want to ruin it, but we did really, really enjoy this. It was good, and it was this one like really kept moving. Like the adventure really kept moving, and you learned a little bit more. You had some suspicion about some things. It's really interesting because Linessa's story is told in third person. Nier's story is told in the first person, and I think some of that has to do with because there's a difference in the language just because of the time that has gone by, and Linessa's people have just grown and over the centuries here on their own, and so they speak the same language, but a lot of stuff means something different. So when he says something, she interprets it in a different way. Like he says something from like a scientific perspective, and she understands those words in a more primitive, medieval, fantastical way. And so the names for things and how they're characterized, you see them differently, and I think that's probably part of the reason why Tchaikovsky used the different tenses for their narratives. So it was, and it flips back and forth between the two of them throughout the book. From it's Liness Nier. It was really good. It was very cleverly done, I think, and you suspect certain things, but certain things are then, and then you find out. But so it was really good. We would recommend this one. I don't know if I did it justice, but we would definitely recommend this one. So yeah, so those were the shorter Tchaikovsky works that you may not know about. The novella Made Things, the prequel short story Precious Little Things, and then the novella Elder Race. So let us know if you've read these, or if we maybe whet your appetite and you think you might. They're short, easy reads, and they're fun. You won't regret reading them. So like pretty much everything Tchaikovsky. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again very soon. But in the meantime, take care. Oh, if you don't have anything substantive to say, you can always leave Olive a puppy emoji, because she does always like to see those, right? Right, Olive? Boy, we forgot to keep you awake during this thing. I'm surprised you didn't jump over me to try to get those. But yeah, let us know what you're reading. Like if you've read these, or if not, let us know what you're reading. Let us know if you're doing Horror Mayhem. We always love to hear from you. And if you don't have anything substantive to say, you can always leave Olive a puppy emoji, because she does always like to see those. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again very soon. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time.